Hi everybody, welcome. Good evening to every one of y'all here today. It's good to have you here, and it's a beautiful Saturday evening over in Malaysia, and I hope wherever you are, we wishing you the best of whatever time it is in your place. My name is Louis. I'm from Broadcast Elements. We are actually the organizers for the XR event that's happening in November. Let me tell you a little bit of what's going on. This webinar, which is actually the second part of four-part series of the webinars, XR webinars, that we plan that we are having towards the November event itself. What we plan to do is actually have different topics, different sessions during each webinar to look at the different aspects of XR being a role play in the industry itself. Well, we started last month with XR in film technology. Today we're talking about XR in film medication. Next month we are talking about XR in broadcasting, and following that would be end of October. We're doing something relating to events and virtual tourism. Yeah, and that will lead on to the XR event, which is actually November 11, 12, and 13, which for now we're looking at a hybrid event. If the SOP is serious, and we might just turn it and let it be a virtual event all the way through. Yeah, with that, we are planning also to have lots of workshops held by different organizations, filmmakers, to talk about the making of this movie, that movie, the different concepts of virtual production and so on and so forth. Yeah. Today, we have about 5 panelists with us, and also a special guest panelist as well. And along the way, we would also like to thank our post-production association in Malaysia, which is actually PostStem, for endorsing the event, and FINAS, the Film Board of Malaysia, for endorsing this event throughout until November as well. Now, the reason of having this event is actually to create an alternative shooting location concept during pandemics. Okay, what's happening out there? A lot of us cannot go out and do, get a story done. No matter what nature of work we do, we just can't go out. And this was one of the other alternatives, not so much of going XR and having a stage LED, but virtually, having a green screen, and how you do something at home and create content and tell stories. Also, to boost the industry with this technology would mean, the indie filmmakers who don't have access to such high-tech equipment, how are they going and doing production work like this? We are here to educate to those group of people as well. Bringing hands-on technical experience, and also create new pool of talents, in this area. We realize that the whole bunch of individuals who want to come and learn, but they don't know how, let alone have the right technology to do this. So the topic today, like I mentioned earlier, is XR in film medication, and how we're going to go about is to let me introduce you to the 5 panelists, starting with Chaitanya Chinchilaka, who is actually the Vice President and Business Head, Chief Technology Officer, and Head of Emerging Media of Whistling Woods International Film City Complex, Mumbai, India. Chaitanya has had a multifaceted 2 decades career in the film and creative arts industry. He is currently the Vice President and Business Head at Whistling Woods International, India's premier film and creative arts institute. Then we have Professor Frank Cindano. He's the President Founder of Virtual Film School Hollywood, USA. Professor Frank Cindano, Founder President, who teaches new media globally using VR classrooms, and he's also a multi-award wins for both filmmaking and teaching, right? Dr. Siti Azrina is a lead XR researcher. She's from Asia Pacific University of Technology and Innovation in Malaysia. Dr. Siti is a multimedia lecturer at Asia Pacific University in Technology, with over 13 years of experience in teaching multimedia and computer science modules. Our next panelist is Mr. Martin Chong. He's a professional filmmaker, lecturer at Design School, Taylor's University's Design School, a cinephile, filmmaker, educator. Martin Chong is affiliated with the Design School since 2011. Martin taught various modules in the design school, including 360 video storytelling, video and sound production, intro to photography, digital photography and imaging, visual compositing and industry collaboration, and not to mention VR. Our next panelist is Mr. Clyde D'Souza. He's a creative technologist from a company called Derogate Labs, based out in Mumbai, UAE. Clyde is a creative technology and advisor to government media incubators, media institutes, and film studios. He's a published author in the hand sci-fi genre with Penguin Random House. His other non-fiction book, Think in 3D, is used by film directors in Hollywood and is part of the reading syllabus at University of Southern California Immersive Design course. All right, so I will also introduce to you later Mr. Jason Bevan, who will be our guest speaker towards the end. He'll come in and say a few words as well later on. Okay, without further ado, we'd like to get started with this, as we have 1 hour on this session. With looking at the questions and some of the things that we have in store for all of y'all, it may go a little bit above the hour. So just bear with us, be with us, and get the gist of everything, all right? Okay, so starting with Chaitanya. This is a question for all the panelists. How does your organization play a role in AR, XR, and how has the pandemic impacted your business? Over to you.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon, evening, morning, wherever you are. Thanks, Louis, for having me over. And Whistling Woods, as a film and creative arts institute, we focus heavily on introducing emerging media technologies into our filmmaking curriculum. And over the past 15 years, we have done many research and development activities for that, right? So we host a media technology lab with Sony, one with Google, one with Foxconn, one with Reliance Jio for virtual reality. And the latest one is a emerging media lab, which we've set up to focus on virtual production and the 3 associated technologies of it, which is volumetric capture, photogrammetry, and object motion and camera tracking. So over the last, I would say, 2.5 years, we've done significant amount of experimentation and development in these 4 areas, to a point where today we have almost closed out a curriculum to teach, to include virtual production into our filmmaking program, and make sure that all our students, when they graduate, they know how to make films the traditional way, as well as on-set virtual production or in-camera VFX, whatever you want to call virtual production, right? Now, the pandemic has actually affected us in a very different way when it comes to our education or when it comes to our R&D, research and development activities for virtual production. So when it comes to education, it's forced us to take all our classes online, but keep our practicals on campus only. So, we moved into hybrid mode. But when it comes to our R&D activities, they've actually gone through the roof. We've been able to do what we otherwise would have done in 2.5, 3 years. We've been able to do it in 18 months. Wow. So much so that originally we had planned to wrap up the curriculum by 2022 end, but we've been already able to do it, right? Yeah. The other thing that has happened in the pandemic is that because virtual production has kind of accelerated on account of lack of travel of so many production crews, so that has caused global technology creators to give that extra impetus into training and into creating a workforce to enable this global virtual production to happen. And we have benefited with that because they've been doing more and more and more training, and we have access to more beta software, more hardware, more software, more emerging pipelines to structure what we wanted to build out in virtual production. So yes, the pandemic has affected us in two ways. Some bad, but most of it good, actually.
Okay, excellent. Sounds like you all have got your industry endorsements in place already, yeah? Fantastic. Okay.
Oh yeah. So we've, in fact, Whistling Woods is today is one of the founder members in the SMPTE, the Society of Motion Pictures and Television Engineers.
Yep.
So I was invited to join the global board of governors of the SMPTE earlier this year. Okay. And Whistling Woods was invited to join the standards body, which is laying down the standards for virtual production and all its associated technologies, which the SMPT is leading. So over the next 18 months, we will start to write the standards for virtual production globally.
Beautiful, beautiful, awesome. Professor, over to you next. Same question again, just a run through of how's your institution's role in AR, XR, and how has the pandemic affected you?
Well, Louis, first of all, thank you very much for having me. I am in Hollywood right now, and it's 3:30 in the morning here. Sorry, 4:14 in the morning here. It's a little before my bedtime, so that's why I wore this tie. Because that's about how I feel right now at this early hour. Okay. So I've been working in film production since the 1980s, and I brought, here's a copy of the first feature film that I worked on. If you can
back up a bit,
see that. Oh, there it is. Okay, so it's Ghostbusters, and all right, you'll have to just believe me.
We do.
That it's Ghostbusters.
Just put it in front of your body. If you put it in front of your body, people will be able to see it.
That's perfect. No.
Yeah.
Okay. That's good. That's good. Yep.
All right then. Yeah. So the point is that, and made rather badly, I must say. But the point that I was trying to make was that I've been working in films with visual effects since my early days of my career. And so when I was able to partner with some folks to start virtual film school, the idea of being immersed inside of a world that is virtual is just so incredibly appealing. And so that's why we started virtual film school, primarily because here in Hollywood, there are many famous film schools like University of Southern California, for example, where I've also been a professor. And the problem with a lot of those is, first of all, they're terribly, terribly expensive. The last school I taught at, Chapman University, it's $80,000 US a year to attend that school. And they have no shortage of people who are applying. In fact, they turn away 95% of the students who apply. So that means that there's a very limited opportunity for people. And we wanted to give as many people opportunity as possible. So our school is much, much, much less expensive. And if I may share my screen, I can show you what we do in about 65 seconds. Is that all right?
Can do, but we'll come back to your, we need your questions, in terms of how has it affected you? The pandemic, how's the
pandemic affected us? Well, not much, to be honest. We're completely virtual, so everyone is working from home or from their home offices. And fortunately, here in Southern California, the weather is very pleasant, and so we can do a lot of filming outdoors. We can eat outdoors. We can meet outdoors. So we're not terribly affected. Okay. And if you're smart enough to be in the film business, you're probably smart enough to get vaccinated. Not all Americans are. There's a lot of Americans who are not terribly smart. Some of them were president recently, but most people, most people in the film business are pretty smart. So, so we're not terribly affected. Here's a 72-second video of what we do.
Okay.
Movies can take us anywhere.
So can virtual reality. So if you want to be a filmmaker, why would you study in a classroom like this?
When you could study in a classroom like this, using the same technologies we used on Avatar, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, and Lord of the Rings. We created a new film school for a new medium.
And it works. Our students have become stars on YouTube, TikTok, and more.
Traditional film schools are vastly more expensive and use outdated teaching techniques, and they're definitely not set up for online learning. We use live instructors who mentor you in our proprietary virtual classrooms.
The world's greatest teachers, cutting-edge technology in your home. This is where your future starts.
It worked for me. Are you next? Virtualfilmschool.org. Higher education for the next generation.
Awesome. Fantastic. Thank you, Professor. Come back to you. Dr. Siti, over to you. How does your company play a role in XR? And how has the pandemic impacted your business?
Hi. Okay. From APU University itself, in university we already have a APU XR studio, where this studio is equipped with all the XR tech we have on augmented reality, virtual reality, and mixed reality. So on this technology, we try to cope with the industry demand actually, because in Malaysia the XR demand is really high, and we try to equip the students with all these skills and knowledge on the XR studio itself, the collaboration with industry. So that is one of the things about XR in APU, and then how we cope on the pandemic is really impact on us. But as all of you know that we have our online digital learning, and actually we already get used with this online digital learning like 2 years before the pandemic itself. So it's not really like a shock to us. So we just get used to it and try to engage with the students like more using on the digital learning platform, all the digital learning tools, how to engage with the students.
Fantastic. Thank you, Dr. Siti. Martin, over to you. What's your take on AR XR and how has it affected tailors?
First thing, okay, hold on. Okay, unmute. All right. Same like APU, like in these 2 years, almost 2 years already, we move every classes on to online. Yeah, first we thought it's gonna be a short while, gonna blow away very soon, but it stay semester after semester. Now it's like the second years, but like we kind of get used to it, right? The good thing is, for design, we a lot of our module, our course can be conducted online. Yeah, that's the thing.
Beautiful.
Yeah, all right. Another thing is like, how the pandemic affect us. If I look at it from a different perspective, right, since the pandemic started, right, lockdown and all the business go digital, right? And then all the designer is in hot demand. They're like so busy, can't even have a day off during Christmas or New Year.
Right, that's right, exactly.
Yeah. So I mean, like, but like we can see that we need to like evolve from those like traditional design school, and then cater the need of the industry for example UV UX design. Yeah, of course AR, VR, of course as well as XR. Yeah, XR is like always like in our discussion is on the drawing board. Yeah, but now I think it's about the time, so we are about ready to set it up. Yeah, which is leading by one of our lecturer, Dr. Charles. Yeah.
Fantastic. Good to know that.
Yeah. Okay.
And Clyde, hi, and over to you. What's your take on this? You're muted, Clyde.
Yeah, just a second. Let me unmute the whole system out here, and I think the whole background went off. But
I thought you walked into another studio.
yeah, that's my home studio, by the way. So yeah, awesome. I had to plug that in.
Okay.
So
go on.
I'm unmuted, right? Yeah. So it's well, I'm a creative technologist, usually on contract to different institutions, some of them being like the government of Abu Dhabi, where I created a lab a long time ago, polytechnics in Singapore, like Nanyang Polytechnic, and some studios in Mumbai. Like I set up a VR studio for Eros STX, and also at Times Television, an immersive journalism incubator for reporters and executive producers to start producing stories in immersive media. But the pandemic, well, it's not really affected this part of the work. It has affected my on-ground work, where I am kind of like, let's say, a stereographer, virtual reality consultant for filmmakers on set. So that part has definitely, come to a halt. But the interesting part is it's given me time to do R&D in areas like, let's say, directing remotely. Writing interfaces for software or for hardware systems that can be controlled. So one of the experiments I did do with a partner in the UK is a music video, a volumetric music video at that, for an 80s band in the UK, where we actually I was sitting in Dubai directing it out there, controlling the whole system being Microsoft Kinects along with the capture software, while a 2-person crew was setting it up there. So that's the area that I'm focusing on right now, to bring or to expand on this, because virtual filmmaking goes along with being virtually, let's say, not in the same place. And with technologies coming up from Facebook and stuff like that, like Horizons and all, could we then start using these as platforms for schools? Could the new film school be online like that? So it's been a blessing in a way, but also, yes, the on-ground thing has stopped. And well, looking forward to a lot more happening in virtual reality filmmaking, as well as XR in production will go beyond just LED volumes, and it crosses over into film game convergence using the like, for example, you see Fortnite right now. It's not a game engine anymore or a game. It's a platform for telling stories. Full concerts are happening out there with millions, like last year's Travis Scott concert had 1 million people attending. So could we call it cinema now? For sure, because it's a whole narrative that was playing out there. So these are the interesting synergies that are coming across, and interesting times, which film schools and pedagogy for going forward should start embracing. And that's where I
I guess it's some sort of being resilient to what we're facing, and new ways of working, and the change is there. It complements everything that we're doing right now in a better new way, in terms of cost cutting measures, and not to mention teleportation as well these days. Stay tuned, we'll tell you more about
remote telepresence.
Exactly. Correct. So how is everybody doing, the audience? While we're talking here, feel free to put your questions in the chat box over there, and also tell us where you're from, which country you're from. Just type and let us know, so we know where's everybody. How's everybody doing? Okay, let's move into a notch up. Chaitanya, just a question for you about the Indian film industry. I mean, how do you see the role of Whistling Woods, as to what's next in the Indian film industry?
Okay, that's a broad question, but essentially what the school has been doing over the last 15 years or so is to be the sharp end of the stick when it comes to breakthrough into the industry of new and emerging technologies. So whether it's digital cinematography, so the move from celluloid to digital, or whether it's the entire kind of concept of content creation for digital platforms with YouTube and the YouTube Space and the YouTube Educator Lab, which we host. So we hosted the YouTube Space on campus and the YouTube Educator Lab. We currently also host the Sony Media Technology Center. So there's one in LA, Culver City, there's one in London, and the third one is inside our campus. So we've started working with several of these technology companies to essentially make sure that we're able to introduce both our students and the industry to the next generation of technology and workflow pipelines.
Mm.
Whether it was, like I said, with digital cinematography and digital platforms, then cinematic virtual reality. So we set up a VR lab to focus on cinematic VR,
Mhm.
which is fiction narrative storytelling in 360.
Okay.
And that was funded by Reliance Jio,
Right.
which is one of India's largest technology as well as mobile phone companies. And the current lab that we run is the Emerging Media Lab, which is focusing on virtual production. So we've been teaching students, traditional filmmaking. We've also been introducing a lot of these new and emerging tech into the pipeline, both for our students as well as the industry. Now, what that's enabled us to do is to actually be the kind of the point of confluence where anybody who is looking um, at introduction of new technology, or somebody who wants to do beta testing, or anybody who wants to explore how to kind of introduce a new tech workflow into the Indian or any film and media industry, has been approaching us actively, and we've been able to set up a lot of beta testing pipelines with them. So on the tech side, that's what we've been doing. On the academic side, we continue to kind of work strongly. We're graduating about 300 to 350 students every year, and expanding the scope of trained talent in India with in film, animation, gaming, comics, fashion, music, design, etc., etc. So I would like to think that we're continuously creating the next generation of the Indian film industry.
Yeah, and that's aligned with Bollywood and Nollywood, as you say, right? Well, are they
yeah, I mean,
industry?
India makes content in 23 languages.
Mm.
So we're not that really hung up on Bollywood or any particular industry. We have students from all over.
Yep.
Our alumni go out and work in almost all the Indian film industries. So we don't. I mean, we're not a Hindi language or a Bollywood kind of focused, Mumbai focused school. Even
Okay.
though we are based in Mumbai, students come from all over.
Mm.
And about 10% of our students are from are not from India. So that kind of enables us to look at the entire country as a whole, and make sure that it's not only Hindi or Telugu that kind of moves ahead, but everybody moves ahead, including the other languages.
Fantastic. Thank you for that answer, Professor. Tell us about your film, virtual film experiences in terms of as to what, and also what Hollywood is doing in terms of this immersive technology. Is it like it's going full scale? Is it like a day-to-day thing already? Because some of us are playing catch up, but I believe in some places it's already a daily thing. Share with us a little bit of your experience and what's happening in Hollywood.
Well, sure. Well, at the moment in Hollywood, it's 4:30 in the morning, so it's dark.
I get
what's happening in Hollywood. There's not a lot of traffic right now. The 24-hour diners are open and they're kicking people out. But in terms of Hollywood production, what I'm going to say is that we have kind of figured out how to shoot things now post-COVID. So as I said, there's a lot of outdoor activity here. So that's really, really helpful. Constantly breakthroughs with people from all over the world. So, I would be honored to continue conversation with Lewis or Martin or Clyde or Dr. Siti, because we're trying to create something that's global. And I can show you, for example, if I may share my screen again, what it is that we're doing that's so global here. So if you look here on our YouTube channel, you can see that we have been teaching in partnership with the Beijing Film Academy. I'll show a little bit of that. We did something with high school students in Singapore. We've been doing it in Finland. We started at Chapman University in Los Angeles as well, and we're working in Tokyo with a school called Agarud. So our model is to partner with many other schools, and what we're doing is we're offering something that is a little bit different. We're talking about new media. So let me just show a little bit of what's going on, what we were able to do in Singapore.
All right.
Months back? Months back. When was the last time you saw a video on your phone?
Today afternoon.
Well, virtual film school is the idea of teaching new media, which is YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all kinds of places where media is actually watched. So these students who were, so young and so cool were able to make videos that were very short and wound up on YouTube. We brought in teachers, as you can see here, from Peter's in Chicago, Julian was in London, and there he is working with our students in London, from London, I should say. So that's one of the great things about what we're doing. And here they are in the films that they've made, and it's pretty hilarious. And what virtual film school is able to do is that we're able to use the virtual technology very quickly and very efficiently, so that students can visualize. Once you're inside of the virtual world, you can visualize where the walls are, where the camera should be, where the lights should be, and that sort of a thing. And then when you get on set, you're able to recreate that almost immediately. You've learned it, and you know where things are going to be, so you know where to do everything, and so it makes everything move much more quickly. And we're kind of proud of that.
Thank you for that. That sounds interesting. Dr. Siti, how does APU University play a role in research and XR industry?
Okay, at the moment we have a few research projects, especially with the education industries and then also government. For example, we have on the medical simulations, that is a project with IMU, International Medical Universities, where they, the project is on, we're going to create a virtual reality on for their teaching and learning on medical stuff. And then on AR marketing, augmented reality marketing, where we're going to use the volumetric capture to capture the 3D human, and then transfer it into the augmented reality applications. And then recently we have a project with tourism and also with drone. So that one we need to create it on virtual reality also, because especially during this pandemic, we can have like a large gathering or visit on any of interesting places. So that is what we plan to do, especially on the cultural heritage in Malaysia.
Oh, nice. You must hear what Clyde has to say about meta-humans. She has a lot to say about that later. Okay, Martin, as a professional filmmaker lecturer at Taylor's University, I'm sure you have done lots of these movies. And what are the fundamental change by using XR virtual production techniques?
All right. Okay. So as myself, I come from I'm kind of old school. Like I studied film, while we are still shooting film, which is film. But as the technology go at once, and then everything changed. And not to mention now I'm in design school, right? We are not film school, right? Yeah. Okay. So also bringing in XR or virtual productions, basically it kind of changed everything. Yeah, for our video courses. So but then the student might ask, hey, I thought I watched the Mandalorian, but what are the changes? What are the most basic changes? So I always like to try to explain to them the most simplest way. Yeah, most simplest way. For example, I will just share 2 slides with them. I tell them, okay, this is the difference. Yeah, this is the difference. Okay, this is the a major difference. We used to, we plan things. We have our storyboard, or we have our animatics. So we start filming, right? And then we have our green screen, and then we're gonna fix everything in the post, right? I mean, like, we all in production before, we heard this million times. Fix it in post. Love it or hate it.
Yes, common.
Right? Yeah, but then again, it becomes, we all know that there's not, you can't fix everything in post. Yeah, some you can't. Yeah, and then it shouldn't be the habits. Yeah, and actually, XR, it kind of, forces us to think in advance. Right? You need to get things ready that you can present and at the LED walls. Right? You need to get the visual effect ready, then you can start filming. Right? Instead of fixing post, now you ready everything in pre-pro.
Correct. Yes.
Right? So I mean, like a basic, fundamental change, I would say, is this. Right? And then after you get this idea, then we can go to the detail. Okay, what you have to look at it next. Do you have to? What is the difference in terms of the storytelling? No, unless you are talking about VR, right? Just now, Chaitanya said talking about VR filmmaking. That is different. Yeah, it's about experience rather than storytelling. That is different. Story is not, but the workflow is the major changes when you bring XR into productions.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that answer.
All right.
Okay, Clyde, I know you have something for that question as well, and I'd like to throw you this combo. First is the same question what I threw to Martin as to what has changed in terms of the production technique, and secondly, having been an advisor to the local government here in Malaysia, in similar areas, do you believe Malaysia has a capability of becoming the regional power in virtual production and film technology?
Definitely. Why not? I've seen it's between Malaysia and Singapore. There's a lot of passion in there. There's a lot of talent in there. So yes, I am for the second year running part of the mentor panel at Magic, MDEX Magic, for entrepreneurs who are looking at reaching product stage in media. So with that, I'm getting a lot of, I'm learning more about the kind of talent that's there in the country. So definitely they can move in. And now what I'm looking at is speaking to like the institutions. There's many, like I've been speaking with Aswara recently, a couple of others as well. You see the difference between what's happening in some of the countries, I won't name them, is when they talk about like now XR filmmaking, or it's become like virtual production. It's all about The Mandalorian is used as a thing, but it's not about LED volumes in filmmaking. XR green screen has got advantages over LED walls, for example. That's getting into technicalities, but one of them being that the LED walls have to be shot completely out of focus because you get more patterns and stuff like that. But that's getting into technicalities. The right tools, the right thing. What I'd like to see is more incubation of thought, of creating stuff. Simple stuff. When we're talking about XR filmmaking, like I think taking as a rough example, the thing earlier before we started this event, we were talking about the background screens right now on this Zoom. So yes, you could use OBS or you could use a mixer and I could skew in there. But it's a simple thing. I just use it as a video background that has been shot and I've been putting it there. But what about IP coming out of that? What about film students looking at using something like Zoom, maybe putting hotkeys onto using the Zoom SDK to start doing stuff like if they want to change backgrounds to add value for corporate slides or for, so basically moving thought along, is incubating thought rather than incubating centers of excellence with shiny gear and things like that. And what I'm seeing in Malaysia, getting back to your question, is that there is this raw passion in the student filmmakers out there, and as well as the professors who are driving it, to want to go into these areas, to go away from the standard. For example, I like what Professor Martin just said, from film it's gone into design now, but that's where the merging is happening. Like, for example, the book Think in 3D that I've written for the past now 5th year running is being used as part of reading syllabus, not the main thing, at the USC's immersive design experiments courses. It's a CTAN 512, I think, course. And they're mixing immersive design with, of course, with with filmmaking, as well as stereoscopic 3D, which is all coming together in an, once you put a headset on, you can't cheat depth. So these are technicalities so it mixes stereoscopic filmmaking along with UX, along with immersive design to tell a story. And this is what I'm seeing is what is coming out of Malaysia. There's definitely talent in the animation side of things. I'm surprised at some of the stuff that's come out, because I've been looking at some of it from one of the programs that I'm on. So it definitely has the potential to move forward and become a powerhouse.
Yeah, thank you for that. We can't wait to have you here once the SOPs are down.
The 14-day, I'm wondering what I'll do for 14 days, probably.
Well, they'll put you into a very nice hotel. Okay, let's move on to the next round. Chaitanya, what is critical for an institution to ensure that they are at a cutting edge of innovation?
So I think three things that institutes need to focus on. One is the right amount of senior management effort needs to go in, right?
Okay.
More often than what what happens is it's a faculty department or an individual faculty, or a bunch of faculty are kind of entrusted with the responsibility of answering the question, what next? And that, I think, is not right. I think somebody within the senior management of the institute has to be responsible for it. There has to be a specific goal, a specific target, which is reevaluated every 6 months to a year as to what the school is focusing on. And after that, there is I wouldn't say a large budget, but a decent sized budget that the school needs to allocate for whoever is responsible for innovation to travel well and attend some of the better conferences that happen globally, whether it's the NAB, whether it's the IBC, whether it's Broadcast Asia, whether it's the SIMTES ATC, the annual conference, and interact with key research and development professionals from the top technology companies in the world. So that's essentially what we've been following. So I am the business head, so I run the P&L of the school. I'm answerable to the board. Whistling Woods is a $10 million top line film school. And despite being the business head and responsible for that, I'm also the chief technology officer, and I head the emerging media initiative for the school. So it's important, that's really what I would say is been the reason why we've been able to also attract so many international global brands to set up research and development facilities on campus, because when they come in and they see the kind of effort that we are putting in to to take forward the entire tech ecosystem and filmmaking ecosystem in India, they're more than happy to contribute. So, see, you have to realize companies like Sony, like Apple, like Red, they're many $1 million enterprises, and what they're essentially looking for is really strong institutional partners who they know are going to do whatever it takes to answer the question, what next? So I think that's what schools need to do. They need to be able to, they need to be ready to do whatever it takes to answer the question, what next? And I think, that's what we've been doing.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much for that. Professor, I believe you may have expressed some of these answers in your earlier slide, but I'm just going to ask you a little bit more on this so that you can expand beyond what you have shown us. Why did you go about and create virtual film school? Okay, and then maybe share with us some benefits in that process of learning.
Well, sure, Louis. Thank you very much. I'll pick up on what Chaitanya said. Which is we're trying to answer the question of what next as well.
Yep.
But for virtual film school, we're a little bit different because we're an alternative to the Hollywood film schools. When I taught at USC, when I taught at Chapman University or UCLA, they really, really focus on training students to be feature film directors. And that's absolutely fantastic. They focus on big budgets and big shows. And so when you're a student at one of those schools, you know, as I said, you're paying $80,000 a year in tuition for that. That's a lifetime of debt that you're going to live into. You may never pay off that 320,000, 350,000 US dollars. And the problem with the premise of these schools is that they are training people to be, you know, big feature film directors and things. But the reality of it is that they're not. They're just not. It's really not going to happen. And their business model is basically to fool 17-year-old kids into thinking that they are going to be the next Quentin Tarantino, or they are going to be the next Martin Scorsese, that auteur kind of thing. And the reality of it is, if you look at Chapman University, for example, they've been teaching film for 40 years. And in those 40 years, they've graduated about 20,000 students. And of those 20,000 students, only 2 are reputable feature film directors. Wow. So if really, I mean, if you went to, you know, medical school, you would graduate as a doctor. If you went to accounting school, you'd graduate as an accountant. When you go to a film school like this, you graduate as a waiter. So, not
okay. At a diner or something, yeah.
Exactly, yes, which should be opening any minute now, yeah. So we're training students instead in new media. And in new media, you've got the world of opportunity in front of you. And if you go to the Virtual Film School website, you'll see some of the students who've done so well. Nikki Baber is on TikTok, and she has 2 billion views and 200 million likes, for example. Freddie Wong, Freddie W, is an ABC, as they say, in American-born Chinese. And Freddie is someone with well over 2 billion views and 2 shows on Hulu, 2 shows on Netflix. So you can use new media to propel yourself. And what I love about it, the most important part of it, here, I'll share my screen again, is this. So one of our teachers, Robin Preibel, for example, she works with this company, The Third Floor. And clearly they are making, you know, amazing, amazing visual productions, right? And what's great about it is that, you know, that employs a lot of people, but it takes a lot of time to make these sorts of videos, right? What we're doing is something that happens very, very quickly, and we're able to do it with students from all around the world. So this is what we did with students in Beijing. And I'll just fast forward it very quickly, but
sure.
At the Beijing Film Academy, for example, they have won quite a number of awards. It's not as prestigious as Whistling Wood, but it is still something. That's all their awards there. And the students were able to, in this case, we teamed up with the Beijing 2022 Olympics to make the videos. The first time the Olympics ever made TikTok videos. And I can show one of them to you right now. So these are the promos that were made. It's the first time, again, that TikTok was used to promote the Olympics. So here's one of them. This is 38 seconds. Oh, not the one I wanted to show, sorry. Here we are.
Just the one? Yeah.
Yes.
Hmm.
Sorry about that.
The streaming, is it?
Yes. Oh, it gets so much better after this. Boy, you are just going to love how good this is.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's very cute, right?
Yeah. All
Now,
about ethics.
the beauty of that is that we pre-visualized it in virtual reality. And so when we got to the set, we were able to produce it very quickly. We had 11 days. The Olympic Committee said, how many of these do you think you can do? You've got 10 students in 11 days. I told them, I think with those 10 students, we could probably do 2 or 3 of them. But the students were so excited and so prolific that we actually did 13
Wow.
in 11 days.
That's better than any other production commercial.
Yeah. And they are absolutely wonderful. The Olympic Committee loved it. Beijing Film Academy loved it. And that's what we do. That's just what we try to help students make these new media videos that are obviously terribly inexpensive, but tell good stories.
Impressive, impressive. I feel like you're signing up already. Going back to school.
We can offer you a discount, Louis. Don't worry.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That would be a huge one.
Yeah,
Our Malaysian
you'll be on
ringgit is dropping,
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor. Okay, Dr. Siti, next question for you. To your understanding, what are the dynamics of XR in today's industry and how does it affect today's filmmaking? Dynamics of XR.
Okay, dynamic of XR, extended reality. If I want to talk about other industries like tourism, educations, as I mentioned just now, tourism, we can have like a virtual tourism, and then on the educations or like a manufacturing example, we can have like a mixed reality remote monitoring. Means you're not being there, but you are there. You just remote monitor it. And if I talk about film, as what I know, the current on the film is on the LED stage compared to the green screen. So as Mr. Martin mentioned just now on the pre-production and post-productions, so it's where you come with the virtual visual effect first, and then on the filming and then editing. So compared to the green screen, the other way around. So it's actually what I will say, if I look at how the LED stage is, what they are doing right now, I can say is a death of green screen, where actually we can have a more immersiveness compared to the green screen, because green screen, I would say the disadvantage on the lighting. If we don't have a proper lighting, it will affect on the background, then we have to shoot it again and all that kind of stuff. And then on the LED, on the remote monitoring, so it's risk reduction, especially during this pandemic. And I will say it's a faster post-production, because we shifted the visual effects first and then filming and then goes to the editing. So I think that is the best of LED stage compared to the green screen.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, thank you for that, Dr. Siti. Martin, in film education, how would you advise students shooting XR virtual production over the traditional green screen, taking it off from Dr. Siti earlier?
Yeah. In fact, first, when we proposed, to have the XR, right, and first the university response was like, hey, you guys, I think we just did the green screen studio, spending quite a lot of money in it, would you able to convince me, to fork out more money again? So I mean, like, so basically we just simply say, oh, that is the next.
Yes,
That's the
yes.
next.
Yes.
You either don't do it now, right, to leading the pack. You do it later, you're gonna chasing after. So which one you want to do? So that eventually they sign it. I think another very interesting thing is, let's say in our design school, we have like, when they move up to upper semester, they have different streams. Some study games, some study animations, some study AR, VR. But with a production in XR, right? We managed to bring everyone together because we make their specialties, all put together to make this whole thing work.
Awesome. Yes.
Right. So in education, there is there's an advantage. We train them, to see things, from a very different out of their, their strength, right? But to learn new things.
Exactly.
Right? For example, even though the UI UX, right, student, they will say, oh, now I know parallax has a very different in animations, because when you're doing VR, you have to know that, when you're moving the camera, you have to consider the parallax effects.
Correct.
Things like that. So there's a lot of things that you can, in educations, we can put students together. Even though if you don't consider that, you're just talking about, production students, right? I think VR, you kind of like put those like a set designer, director, editors, and camera department, or in a tighter working relationship. For example, let's say in a traditional way, you do your set, and then or the DP, the DOP after shooting, they might just maybe it will come back after the color correction or whatnot. But now, no, even though you are doing the set, you have to be careful, right? How is it going to affect the integrate with the LED wall,
Yes.
right? And then if you are a camera DOP, right, you have to know that, okay, I'm going to know the lighting in at once, while the post guy doing the set, the virtual set. So it's So there's a very, 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 very interesting system that we had to rebuild, which is very different from the past.
Correct.
That's what we don't actually experience that about with the traditional productions or green screens or blue screen.
Actually,
right.
that is rather interesting. Now, I'd like to hear from the audience. You've been pretty quiet, did not put any questions up as well. So, can you tell us in a nutshell? Tell us, are you for green screen or are you for XR stage LED screens? Just type that few words. Let us know what you think about it. Put it in while I ask the next question to Mr. Clyde. Clyde, now being part of Magic Mentor panel for the second year, what are your findings on the appetite for XR and media entrepreneurs?
I think we just maybe it's similar to the past one about.
I think you may have
But what I'd like to put a perspective on is the ongoing kind of debate that's happening right now between green screen and, if I may.
You can.
So, what, for me, I try to be as unbiased to the whole approach as possible. So in that regards, The Mandalorian is glamorous. It's Hollywood. It's, to be fair, Unreal Engine. Great marketing, because they spend $10,000 per technical director, TD or TA in Hollywood, to let them learn the engine. So for 1 month, they were learning it and getting paid $10,000. And what happened? Of course, words got spread, but people don't know that Unity has been used in simulations and in visualization for oil and gas and all those kind of industries a long time ago. It has got things like what end displays on Unreal Engine. It had that already, cluster rendering for multiple screens, camera tracking and all that. So when it comes to, so that's not being unfair or fair or biased towards each one, but like a film student could probably learn this in their bedroom, how to do this kind of stuff, and it's open out there. LED screens can be the evolution, let's say, of what background projection was. Like the Terminator was shot on a back screen projection, of course, albeit a very powerful black screen projection system. In LED screens, you can't throw shadows. You have to shoot defocused, because you're going to get more patterns on the background. So yes, the biggest argument being that if you're wearing reflective gear like the Mandalorian stuff, you get in-pixel final lighting. That's great. But for so long, people have been using large panels above cars. So you're shooting green screen, but you have the LED panel on top throwing light. It's not a full stage, but it's a panel throwing light for the reflections and stuff like that. So what I'm saying is it's budgets. If you are a Hollywood studio, or if you are doing, just be exposed to it. And some of the institutions that are investing in LED volumes, great, because you're exposing students who will not have the power to then visit it. You're letting them do that. But it's not the be all and end all of virtual production. It has to be a balanced approach between green screen, because green screen can do so much. You can throw shadows, you can do, like I said, reflections and stuff like that. And a lot of the Mandalorian shots, no one will tell you how much was actually then literally gone and cleaned up in post, because it was not. If you actually read about it, there's a lot that's been there. So I would say approach it from a very balanced perspective. And then something like Professor Frank's virtual production school. Now it's exciting to me because probably the next films, as we call them, will be shot in the metaverse, in Fortnite. Granted, it's not going to be photorealistic people in there for now, but then riffing off the metahuman kind of thing, we'll get there. But these are the kind of stories that Generation Z is, what they want. Like the TikTok, the storytelling in 3 minutes. I think TikTok has now improved it to 3 minutes. That's great. So you can do a chapterized story, 333, and you've got an episode happening out there. Now, those are the tools. That is the kind of systems that we need to embrace, rather than say film is, the Avengers or something. Great, that is there. But like we said earlier, how many students are actually going to be in that? Can they tell different stories? Can they tell stories in documenting culture and heritage? And that, like Dr. City is doing, exploring tourism, probably healthcare, the same tool sets, the same virtual VR, the same stories need to be told. And it's not just for filmmaking. You need to tell like a story to an investor who's putting out money, like say in the oil and gas industry. You need to tell him a story. He's a stakeholder. He can't understand the technicalities of it. So you'll be producing a VR film, which entails the same tools and of the trade that you're learning in film, but for a different industry. So maybe organizations and institutions should open up the minds of the students that don't get hung up on just animation for the sake of animation. You could be using Maya to do modeling of the human jaw or something like that, and experiencing VR. So that's my rant on why this whole thing it's all coming together very nicely, actually. And maybe we should start looking at the pedagogy in that sense of thing, rather than just film.
Totally agree with you. Well said. Well said. Okay, we are up. To the hour, and basically, give us. Okay, things are heating up right now. We still have a few questions, a couple of rounds to go. Bear with us, everybody. We can wrap up within the next 30 minutes. I think it's going to get really interesting now. Okay, so Chaitanya, what step has Whistling Woods taken to ensure that its graduates are the next generation? Now, this is really important in the film and media industry.
So we do a couple of things. One is our goal is to ensure that when students do finish and they go out into the industry, they are at least 6 to 8 months ahead of the curve when it comes to tech workflows. Over the last 10, 12 years, the most amount of change in the industry has come, which has been guided by technology and tech workflows. And that has influenced storytelling, that's influenced content creation, so on and so forth. And we've tried to ensure that students are ahead of the industry when they graduate, which means we as a school, when we do plan our curriculum, we have to be 3 years or 4 years ahead of the curve, because a student who joins, say, this year for a 3-year program will graduate 3 years later, and hence the curriculum that they will start to study will start from it has to focus on them graduating 3 years later and where the industry will be, right? So that's the first thing. The second thing is that at no point of time do we, rather at all points of time, we ensure that the workflow, the hardware, the software, the instructions that the students are getting are on par, if not ahead of the industry. So if the industry is using, 8K, high speed, high dynamic range cameras, our students will use the same. If the industry is building out volumetric capture pipeline using Azure Kinects and Depth Kit, then our students have to be doing that, right? Not just that, they have to be able to be doing a couple of steps above that, and that's the other thing that we do. And the third thing is that we essentially train students for 3 roles. We train them to be employment, we train them to be entrepreneurs, and we train them for research. And as long as each student has a good, strong idea of what it is that they want to do out of these 3 going forward, and most of the students choose either employment or entrepreneurship, we have a strong foundation on which students can build their careers.
Fantastic. Okay, that's really interesting. Professor, what can the virtual film school do for the folks watching in? You're muted, I think.
And rightly so sometimes. Yes, a lot of people feel I should be muted. The thing about virtual film school is that we're empowering students from all over the world to tell stories, and we bring 3 things to the table. Number one is, yes, of course, we have people who've been experienced in Hollywood. Again, our chief strategy officer, Robin Pryble, she was the head of visual effects on movies like Avatar, Lord of the Rings. She did 2 movies with Steven Spielberg where she was shoulder to shoulder with him. And so we certainly have that Hollywood experience. I started on Ghostbusters and worked on many Hollywood productions myself, but we also bring 2 other things. One is London. The majority of our team is actually based in London, and they bring such sophistication, such intelligence, and such knowledge to the table. One of our instructors is Ivan Levine. Ivan was a double first at Oxford, so #1 in his major at both literature and English. Or Dr. John Holder. John runs the Reality Center in the UK, in London, and the Reality Center is one of the preeminent places to do virtual reality. But rather than tell you what we do, I'd rather show you what we do. So I'm going to take you inside a virtual classroom. Now, mind you, we use Zoom effectively. We certainly use other softwares besides this, but this is what it looks like inside of our classroom. So this is Robin Pryble lecturing at the moment to students, and you can see lots of them, on how to make something inside of the Coliseum. And now you can see there's our cameras, there's the students themselves. These were actual live students who are represented there. And he said, well, what if our hero fights a bear and you're able to pull a bear down off of the menu? Well, bears don't eat people, so what about if we had a tiger? Well, a tiger is much more scary. And so now we're able to show a 2-shot and a close-up with the tiger, and get, and know where the camera is going to be, what we're going to be looking at, and that sort of a thing again. So that's what we, that's how we're able to empower the students. And again, because everybody's coming in from all over the world, it's a really great blend of storytelling.
Yeah.
Everybody can watch YouTube, so you're able to put your content up on YouTube or TikTok immediately. And that's what we love.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thanks, Professor. I've been looking at the core of how all these are being created with the green screen and the back-end engines. Dr. Siti, coming to you next. How has the games engine impacted the film industry, and how does Unreal Engine work best for production needs, in your opinion?
Okay, game engine. I would say as what Mr. Clyde mentioned just now, is on the preferences to use what are the softwares available like Unity, Unreal Engine. But on the LED screens, it's suited with the Unreal Engine because of the photorealistic graphics. The powerful of the graphics that Unreal Engine can produce. But actually there is a debate as well outside there where people say that Unity somehow can produce similar graphics to Unreal Engine, but I'm not sure. But I think, from my opinion, Unreal Engine will have a better graphics. And then at the same time, on the Unreal Engine, it helps filmmakers with the pre-visualizations. So you replace the storyboards with the realistic animations, and also you also can use by special pattern for the VR projects on the Unreal Engine. And third one, I will say Unreal Engine will significantly influence the future of cinema because it becomes easier to render and allows you to achieve high quality effects without unnecessary costs. On the game engine, yeah, Unreal Engine. Okay, sorry, Unreal Engine is on the, because there is many tools on the Unreal Engine that can help on the LED stage here. And as what Mr. Clark mentioned just now, on the which one that if we ask APU students, most of them will prefer to use Unity compared to Unreal Engine because they say Unity is much more easier in terms of the programming. But yes, most of the students prefer to use Unity. But they learn Unreal Engine as well. That's why they compare on the. They said, Miss, Unity is the best for us.
All right. Okay. So we know that on the education sector, a lot of this thing are into the Unity Unity engine rather than Unreal Engine. But I guess a lot of individuals now from the gaming sector are preparing themselves in that direction towards Unreal Engine rather than Unity, and I see this difference happening already right now. Okay. Martin, how does today's cinematography affects shooting and lightings in terms of virtual production scenario?
All right, yeah. So I want to mention certain things I think is very interesting to bring up. You see, just now we say in a VR set in a school environment, we're going to bring in a different stream of students to work together, right? So we will have like a more quote unquote traditional-ish multimedia student who is more on the tradition side of the productions. Then you're going to bring in students from games, right? So and then when they work together, they realize, hey, our interpretation on cinematography is very different. The student in the game from the games, like everything is in the engine. The multimedia student, even though they're still doing digital, right, it's different. Right, they still have a hands-on practice on lightings and things like that, right? Yeah, so the LED wall won't solve all the problems, isn't it? You sometimes okay, let's say you look at the actor, so you need to maybe give a little bit of extra ambient light or something, Then the student from the games might not know how to do it.
Yes.
I can do it in the engine, but no, I want you to hold the reflection board.
Yes.
Then you can see how they can learn from each other in terms of cinematography and things. How they realize that, hey, even though we might all learn a very similar sort of fundamentals, but you apply it in a very, very different outcome. Now you can bring it together, then they can learn from each other. That's a very, very interesting point, right? Yeah, to observe.
Okay, that's good. All right, cool. Okay, Clyde. With the uncertainty of the on-location filming, TV shows and films are looking at alternatives. This is leading to job losses for film crews. How can XR help?
That was a question that I was recently actually addressing, especially from, let's say, the Indian film point of view. I used to be a lot before the pandemic hit on, like in 2019, just before the actual thing exploded, I came back to Dubai, so it was safe. And I have really good memories of working with the film's set crew out there, the chai guys, the spot boys that they call them out there, all great people. And what's saddening me is that while I know how to migrate, I mean, all film roles, for example, like a set designer, a cinematographer, they're learning lighting in Unreal Engine or in Unity. It all translates well. Costume designers in the real world can learn, what's the software that does cloth design, Marvelous Designer online. So basically these tools and these film crew positions are very nicely transitioning over. For me, the Indian part was like a lot of those crew out there are not educated enough to actually go into that. So that was the dilemma that I've been facing of how XR. So XR can definitely help a big majority of people who work on location in films, from set design to definitely to actors. We're talking about digital actors right now.
Yeah.
The metahuman is one thing. That's great. There's Reolution if you're actually going to look at software and stuff like that. But so digital actors, I can stay young forever if once I'm volumetric captured or photogrammetrically captured. So that's great. So the pandemic should not be affecting much thing. For me, it is how do I do something about those unskilled workers in the digital domain, which I'm really what I'm trying to figure out right now. But yeah, so otherwise, I feel the XR can definitely help traditional crew to migrate over. So lighting design, TDs, everything, it's the same thing. Environment design. So yeah.
Okay, thanks for the answer, Clyde. I mean, it makes sense. Makes sense a lot. Well, for our final round, before we run through one more go, I'd like to invite Mr. Jason Bevan of Flinders University to come forward, and join us for this last round and share his opinion as well. And Jason is actually he's a senior lecturer, teaching specialist in visual effects and entertainment design. He's from the College of Humanities, Arts and Social Sciences of Flinders University, Adelaide, Australia. So I'll go back again to Chaitanya to lead the flow. Chaitanya, could you take us through a couple of technology-based innovation initiatives that the Institute has undertaken in the past few years?
Yeah, sure. So I think we've done three big ones. One was, early 2012 when YouTube themselves figured out and wanted to create the concept of a YouTuber. So, Google bought YouTube in 2006-07. For the first few years, it was heavily focused on, cat videos and that kind of user-generated content. And then in 2011-12, they started to curate and structure content around creation of YouTubers. And that's when we got into a discussion with Google on what makes a successful YouTuber. They already had a bunch of research, a bunch of data, and using that and using the workflows, we set up a kind of a mission or a plan to create a YouTube educator lab to educate students in content creation, audience development, and monetization for YouTube. And then that coincided with YouTube expanding their YouTube space ambitions outside of America. And so they set up a YouTube space inside Whistling Woods, and we then set up a YouTube educator lab. And this enabled us to start teaching students content creation, audience development, and monetization for YouTube. So we did that all the way from 2014 till today, right? The second one was when virtual reality started to break through, and we decided to set up a lab to focus on cinematic virtual reality. So fiction and non-fiction narrative storytelling in 360 video. And that's when we kind of realized, we looked around and we realized that while there was a lot of technical expertise that was floating around the world, there was little or no creative expertise or narrative expertise that was had to be had. There was no curriculum for cinematic VR. There was a curriculum on the technology workflow, but nothing on the filmmaking side. And we had to write that curriculum. And the only way we could write that curriculum was to make content and make content again and again and again. And distill best practices from that, and then write the curriculum out. So that we did from 2017 to 2020, early 2020. And the natural extension of the VR lab was the emerging media lab, where we started to focus on virtual reality, on virtual production. And by, I think, November or so, we should have the curriculum for virtual production as well built into into all our education programs. Now, we haven't expanded this out of our existing education and offered it to as short courses yet, but that is a plan that we have for 2022. So by 2022 January or February, we should start to have quite a few industry professionals who will come to do these upskilling programs at Whistling Woods. Meanwhile, over the last 2.5-3 years, we've done about 10-12 specific dedicated workshops with high-end film crews in India. So specific production houses. So the director, the producer, the cinematographer, the chief AD, the production designer, the line producer, the audiographer. They've all come in to do specific workshops on both cinematic virtual reality as well as virtual production. And through that, we've been able to enlighten, and we've been able to educate a significant chunk of the industry on these areas. So, these 2 or 3 broad actions or activities is what we've done in the past few years.
Okay, fantastic. Professor, I mean, taking off from where Chaitanya left off, he mentioned about YouTube and certain innovative projects they've done. I know you mentioned a few of your own as well, involving YouTube, TikTok, whatnot. Could you tell us a little bit more of your other innovative projects that you've done? You're muted again.
Great. So it's funny, Chaitanya talked about the origins of YouTube, and I originally started as an instructor who was hired by YouTube to do some teaching there. And when YouTube created their $100 million program, they gave $1 million to 100 different channels. And luckily, one of the channels that I worked with, we received that. We were able to make a series called Mr. Right for them. And you'd be surprised at how quickly $1 million can get spent in Hollywood. But, we won some awards with that and that sort of a thing. But that only furthered the idea of creating low budget stories. And now that we're able to use virtual reality and many of the techniques that you folks are using as well to create these stories, it makes everything much more interesting and much more fun. And because you're able to go and do it, and from YouTube to TikTok to Facebook to all those things, that's really where we're focusing. So this is not only your this is not only your movie theater, this is also your camera. And sometimes your editing system as well. And I can show you very quickly. You would think he must be very boring. He can't say anything. He's got to show it. Well, that's true. So this is our...
I can understand the time. It's 4 o'clock in the morning. Okay.
This is our website. And for example, this is Nikki Baber that I was talking about. So with 2 billion views, 200 million likes, and 6 million followers. And these are our programs. So I'd like to say to all of our friends on the panel here that we actually are a B2B. we partner with other schools. We have partners in Italy. We have partners in the United Kingdom, where we're working with a channel called Brit Asia, a Sky TV network called Brit Asia. And we have another partner here in the United States, but we would be really, really happy to partner with all of you to bring some of these courses with our UK and Hollywood instructors, helping out on them. And the good thing about it is that we don't have just one instructor per course. A lot of times we'll have 2 or 3 instructors who come in, plus a lot of guest speakers. And this is what our team looks like. So you'll see John over in London, or there's Robin here in LA, or there's Ivan in London, or Peter's in Chicago, that sort of a thing. And they're all superstars in their own right. Robert Tursick, for example, he ran production for Oprah Winfrey, Oprah Winfrey Networks. So that's who we've got on the team. And I just love everyone on this call, because all of you are creating innovation in all of your spaces. And I think the biggest mistake that Hollywood makes is to think that we're the center of the world, when in fact we're just a small part of it. And by partnering with everyone here and all the countries here, we can create stories that are more global and probably better for the planet.
Fantastic. Thank you for that, Professor. Dr. Siti, can you share with us the benefits of XR in film industry, namely shooting in a volumetric capture environment?
Okay. On what we have in XR Studio, we have the volumetric capture. And if I may share my screen on this is what we have. Can you see that?
Yep. Yes.
Yeah. So this is for educational purpose. It's just like a 3 meters times 3 meters there. And we have like a 6 depth color sensors together with the studio lighting. And also it's connected with the high performance workstations. So on the purpose for this volumetric capture is especially for the students to create their 3D content. But the process is they have to go with the camera calibration and then point on the cloud capture, and then post processing with the mesh lab, with a Python, and then they have to import to the game engine using Unity, where that is their APU preferred game engine there, and then they convert into application and content development. So as I said, right now we have a research on the AR, augmented reality marketing. So we captured on all the objects, and for your information, we are not just to capture object, we also can create animations, captured movement using this volumetric capture. So for in the APU, we use it for research at the moment, and since pandemic, it left over like a while there. So I hope once the campus is open next month, I hope there's nothing creepy there. So I want to have a look back on my volumetric capture, what happened to that.
Okay. In LED, there's a term called ghosting effect. So you might have one of those effects happening on your screen. Yeah. Okay. Thanks for that. That answer, Dr. Siti. And Martin. Moving along. Why would an LED wall XR stage in virtual production require the integration of a game engine?
Right. Yeah. So I think we mentioned it. I mentioned it a little bit. How in XR production you need to bring together students from different expertise. But before that, I want to step away a little bit. Okay. Basically, you see, when we talk about games, for me, I'm not a game person. For me, games, it begins from Pac-Man and then ends at Street Fighter, if you're old enough to know what it means. And then
Pac-Man goes back ages.
Okay, Super Mario, and then I end at Street Fighter. That for me is good, and then I step away. Okay. Right? So when I came back, which introduced students, say, okay, if you don't play game, but you can watch gameplays. What do you mean? What is that? What is about that? And then I watched those like Hitman series, and then those Spider-Man in PS4. I kind of amazed. I mean, like, wow. Now I kind of know where is the best filmmaker when they are doing work for games. Yeah.
Right.
And not to mention, when I
Okay.
watch, you guys watch the Netflix animation series, Love, Death and Robot. Some of those 3D productions, I kind of realized that, hey, they are coming to get all the jobs from the industry. They are become, so good.
Yep.
All right. Yeah, so good. Okay. I mean, like, it's still a bit plasticky or whatnot, but they are getting closer and closer.
Yep.
Yeah. So I kind of realized that there are not a fine line between all those industry anymore. Film, you can have a lot of influence from games, the cinematography, things like that. Yeah, and then the other way around. Yeah.
Yes.
Which when you bring that into education, that means you had to know those students in 3 years' time when they graduated, which industry going to work at. You have to know. So and then you need to equip them in different skills. All right.
Yes.
Yeah, and then this is a reality, and then this is what's going to happen in education, and then it's like a response to the to the industry in the near future.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for the answer, Martin. Fantastic. Leading on from where Martin left off, Clyde, talking about game engines and everything else, could you expand a little bit in terms of digital actors, influences, and how they are shaping the live event spaces and filmmaking?
Right. I'm actually waiting to hear Dr. Jason or Professor Jason of Flinders, but I'll take this quickly. So carrying on from what Martin said, that's the interesting part right now, because we're talking about, who are actors, what are actors? It's becoming hybrid. It's becoming digital actors with human faces on it. Then there's a lot of AI being put in there, along with what's the term called for face mapping? I'm not getting it, but it's not the deep fakes, but somewhat like that. Mm-hmm. So you're actually getting, everything is turning digital. And so what does an 8K camera mean anymore? Or what does a 4K camera mean anymore? Yeah. What we need to expand on is in virtual filmmaking, what are we using? Again, the Netflix show, Love, Death, Robots. I loved some of the behind the scenes they shared in I was just discussing this last week, a few days ago. There is one, I think, Beyond the Aquila Rift, where they had a sex scene, but to make it more realistic, they did studies on if a person holds another person and their fingerprints are on the back of that person. When they take their fingerprints off, or when they take their fingers off that person, how long does the skin stay red? And that kind level of wrinkle maps and that kind of stuff is what should go into education right now, into the filmmaking curriculums. Yeah. And yes, a mix of having, in the best case scenario, having everything, having an LED volume, having green screen, having game engine and mocap suits. It all makes sense. But the new generation of filmmakers, they don't care. They're watching Netflix's Resident Evil, which is it looked like it came out of a previous software, the output. Yeah. But that's great. I'm watching it. In the end, it's the story that matters. And if Generation Z is actually watching this and they don't care between whether I'm a real person or a digital representation of myself, and the content is selling, see, Netflix is pioneering. Why aren't other software or OTT platforms or schools pioneering in that department? These are the questions to ask. So yes, I believe digital actors, digital cinematography in virtual reality will be the platform going forward.
Fantastic. And I think, Jason, from I think Jason Bevan, I think it'll be perfect for you to add on from here in terms of where Clyde left off, having come from the visual effects and entertainment design area. Well, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you think about the whole XR industry itself, and how you can address the similar, take on from where Clyde left off. Just sum it up in general, yeah. And I think you got a little bit extra time to elaborate your yourself.
Yeah, so first of all, thanks so much for having me. I think I've joined really late to the party. I wasn't planning on speaking today, but thanks for inviting me for this. I haven't got the nice background, unfortunately, that you've all
No
got.
worries, no worries.
I've got my plain old curtain. So just who I am, I'm a senior lecturer at Flinders University in Adelaide, in South Australia, but I'm originally from Wales in the UK. I graduated in the 90s as a stop motion animator, working on pneumatic tape and Betacam,
Wow.
editing on linear edit machines. We still had 16mm film at the time as well. And then I went out into the industry, and it's great to hear what you just said about story, because that's how I feel about all of this, is that everything that I've done, or everything I've been doing in my career, has certainly been about narrative and story, and all the tools that I've used all along the way have just changed every single year. But ultimately it's all about story. It's all about narrative and entertainment, and that's exactly what I'm teaching now, is visual effects and entertainment design. So yeah, I spent a little bit of time in the industry, children's television in the UK, and then I went back into teaching. I spent 20 years teaching at the University of South Wales, in Cardiff in Wales, and then I decided to leave the UK in 2019 and go via China. I taught in Geotang, Liverpool University, for a year before arriving in Australia. And I arrived in Australia, and then we went into a global pandemic. That was my arrival. So I arrived in January, and certainly everything changed. Now, when I arrived, I was shown the new motion capture facility that we had at Flinders. The week that I arrived, and I managed to go there for a week, I think. If I can just show you a little section of this, if I can. I'm going to share my screen now. This was our facility. Hope you can see that. So this is the week we spent in the Void, which is it's our virtual production and motion capture studio at Flinders. It is a Vicon system, so it's got 20 cameras in there. It's now got an LED wall in there as well. And we were thrown into this, right? You know, it's the first time I've been really doing virtual production in such a way. You know, obviously experienced it along in little dribs and drabs in the last 5 or 6 years, but certainly nothing to this degree. And Adelaide being a small place, it's a relatively small city in comparison to Sydney and Melbourne and Brisbane, and we've got some great companies that are in Adelaide, like Rising Sun Pictures, Mighty Kingdom Games Company. We have Mr. X now is in Adelaide as well, and they were all very interested in coming to see what we've got to offer, and certainly using it as a research and development space so that they could actually come and test things out, and in doing so they could kind of share that knowledge with our students, and they can break things and we can break things, and certainly experimentation has been the whole idea behind this. So there's some other things that I've got on the screen as well. Is this again, one of the companies in Adelaide is Model Farm. Model Farm have got a little they've got a company that do short little animations, and they wanted to come and see whether they could change their animation to virtual production, and come into the studio or come into the Void and see if they could get that working as a purely virtual production pipeline, rather than animating and spending 10. I think the whole idea was that they wanted to go from 30 minutes of animation, to 30 minutes of motion capture, and how long it would take would be minutes in comparison to weeks and weeks and weeks of animation. So and we did succeed to demonstrate that we could do this kind of stuff. Unfortunately, taking that forward is trying to convince the powers that be sometimes in businesses that this is a right production method is sometimes a little bit difficult. And so yeah, so that's kind of how things have gone now. Is that we've got, there's another one here, Coffee and Quasars, which is a virtual production film by a company called We Made a Thing. Oh, sorry, yeah, We Made a Thing. There we go. They came in and did a virtual production film, a comedy film, and it was just to see how they could work with the screen, because they hadn't really filmed it that way before. And some of the things you said earlier about the challenges that they have in filming in that environment as opposed to green screen, but then some of the positives. And that's pretty much how we play it, really. Obviously, we've got a very established drama center, so we've got access to actors. The Void is in the drama center, is in an old television studio. We've got amazing animation students, and they're concept artists and game students and all those kind of things who work together. And so we've been really using it as a virtual production space. Is pretty much how it is. It's a virtual production space where we come and test, we play. I'm in there every single week, trying things out, breaking things. We are doing a huge collaboration between students that involves trying new pipelines and trying to define the pipelines of film. Because we're creating jobs now that don't exist. We're creating methods that are back to front, and all sorts of strange things are going on. And it reminds me very much of when I was a student in the 90s, and they started wheeling in a load of computers, and I was going, oh, that's not going to take off. I'm there playing with my plasticine in the corner, thinking that's the way to go. But obviously that made a huge impact in the industry back then, and I feel the same thing now. Is this is a massive change, but hopefully we're still storytellers and filmmakers, and we want to tell interesting stories and narratives, and use tech to do that, not kind of get not the other way around. That makes sense.
Fantastic. That's really great. In a nutshell. So I think that's all the time we have for. I'd love to get a one round perspective for everybody. Just to say a few words, but we have to keep it really short. If we can just, every one of us, just say something about the what we can offer or some advice to the students out there and the lecturers out there. What do you think should be their direction in terms of either they take up the study, or for the teacher, should they create a syllabus in taking it the right way? What is the right way to move forward? So in very quickly, can we, since Chaitanya is not here, Professor, you want to lead the closure?
Yeah, so we don't just teach new media because it's the cheapest, easiest, fastest path to having your work made and seen around the world. We're teaching new media because YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, videos like that, they're the most powerful form of messaging in the history of the world. If you look at the Ice Bucket Challenge, where people poured ice on their head to raise money for a cure for ALS, we can cure a disease with this stuff. If you look at Greta Thunberg, for example, she was watching videos on her phone, decided to make them herself, and within a very short time, she was a Nobel Prize nominee. She was lecturing to the leaders at the United Nations, all from the fact that she was making these little social media videos. And if you look at the converse of that, there are people in the United States who are using social media video for evil and for disinformation. This month, or last month, I should say, there were more videos about the pandemic and about COVID on Facebook that were disinformation than there were information. More people watched lies than watched the truth. So that's why we're doing this, and that's why we feel compelled to work in this area, and that's why we want to work with all of you around the world to help tell these important stories and to empower students to do good things.
Thank you, Professor. Dr. Siti?
I want to talk in terms of Malaysian industry itself, especially in Malaysia, because I think Malaysia have to create more on the XR awareness, because there is a case. This is a real story where there is a visitors came to ABU, and they're looking at our XR studio and they're asking us like, what is this? What is this all about? What is this technology? What is this? The Oculus Quest. They're looking at the Oculus Quest, the HoloLens. They say like, so we just mentioned that this is where you can have the mixed reality, augmented reality. So there was like, they never heard about that. So, and then the kids itself, the kids previously, she want to enroll for accounting. So once after she saw on all the technology, she said that that I want to enroll this XR program. So like Malaysian itself, not many of us aware on this extended reality. I'm sure overseas outside there it's well known about this, but Malaysia, from my perspective of view, in learning, in educations, I think not many universities in Malaysia also offer on this extended reality and equipped with the XR studio, like MMU. I know Multimedia University, some of the in Klang Valley itself, but yeah, in Malaysia itself, there needs some government need to do something like on extended reality to booms on the because we need skill at the end.
Don't worry about that. I'm working on that very hard. My tagline is technology for moving pictures. Just to rub it in a bit. Yeah, okay. So Martin, your closure, your mic. Your mic.
Okay. All right. Okay, I would like to say, the future is out there. But you have, I would say you have to be open-minded. This is the world you look at. Even though you look at the NBA basketball game, a center need to now go out and shoot three. A point guard need to shoot more than a shooting guard. So you might, you go to film school, like Prof. Frank say, you might think yourself as the next product. I mean, I've been there, done that, thought about that before. But we can, with the technology now, we can offer you more. Maybe you can be the next Tarantino in creating interactive contents, or maybe the next Tarantino creating VR contents, or even though games. You never know. So I think so be open-minded, and then I would say it's a very exciting in future times. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Clyde, you want to conclude with some?
Yes, I think from what I've gathered now altogether, I would say the emphasis should be on incubating thought more than on incubating or creating these physical centers of excellence. I see a lot in my time, money being spent on flashy hardware and stuff like that. It's great. It's a great showroom, like Dr. Sidi says, when parents come in. Yes, that's great. So Lewis, here's the thing for you. Maybe set up a couple of OB vans, park them outside the universities so that the parents come in and they see what is in there. Yeah, to get kick-started. But students should not be, for example, put off. Maybe some of them can't afford to be in a program that is that high. But for example, let's say like, the center that's doing mocap that Jason showed us. So yes, you can start off learning mocap, for example, with just the Oculus Quest on. Software like Glycon 3D will put you in there. You can do mocap in that. You can learn to get kickstarted until you then graduate enough to get into a proper suit or to afford a suit like that. So let not the lack of ownership of technology or like an 8K camera or something that put you off right now, because it's being blended. The real world and the digital world is coming together with these game engines. Film game convergence is coming on. It's free. Unreal Engine is free. You could use it for filmmaking right now on, I think so is Unity to a certain extent. I think for video it is. So what's important is getting these real world skills translated into the digital domain. Like if you're interested in set design or in environment design or in costume making, learn what the digital equivalent is of that. If you're into cinematography, well, you can own the best camera it's just limited to the resolution of your screen right now. But what's important is to incubate thought with the faculty. The faculty need to upgrade themselves. I can't be sitting right now. I'm actually an advisor to panels, like at the board level. But I like to find myself or position myself as the kind of connector, the creative technologist between those board members and the actual people who are doing that. So for that, I have to sit down at night and I have to start thinking of ideas, thinking about do things. And faculty need to keep updated on that. What's happening is a lot of courses are coming out because they're not updated. They're just like, let's push this out because we trained on it. So that's what we should do.
Excellent.
Is what I believe.
Well said, Clyde. Jason, your opinion on this matter?
Yeah, just following on from that really is I think that the stuff that we've been doing at Flinders, originally all our tech came from research money for a research project it's called Lost Theatres, which is about reconstruction of historic buildings around Adelaide town that was to try and get performers to act in the same space as they would have done hundreds of years ago. So that's how we got access to the equipment in the first place.
Yeah.
And I'm always very much telling students, you download software that's free. You can get DaVinci Resolve for editing. You can get Unreal Engine for nothing. You can download Blender for 3D, and you've got that at your fingertips, and you don't need all this high-tech stuff to get projects done. But obviously, we took extreme advantage of the fact that we do have a motion capture facility that was plonked right in the center of the university, and we also benefited immensely from. I know this is going to sound backwards now, but it's like because of the pandemic, no one was using LED screens for music performance, and we saw an opportunity to team up with a local company to install that in the university at the time when they couldn't use it. It was stuck in a warehouse. And then because of the interest that it actually it got from the industry in Adelaide, we managed to persuade the university to keep them. And so it was one of those kind of business opportunities that got thought of by actually the chief technician in the drama center who came up with this wacky idea to promote virtual production to the university, and it worked. It's amazing. So we've got this facility as well. So the students got access to this amazing kit to test out their stories and their games and all this kind of stuff. But they've also got just bog standard everyday access to stuff that they've got on their laptop as well. So yeah, I hugely encourage them to go and play as much as they possibly can, and then we will give them the extra bit as well to get their technological skills up to the kind of level they need when they get out there.
I'm curious to know, I mean, what is the value of tech in your university?
Yeah,
a lot of tech.
It's not cheap.
I noticed.
I know that
a lot of tech.
The wall itself was very much, those walls are huge, so they're very expensive.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, exactly. Okay, well, that's all we have for time for today. I mean, this happened to us the last webinar as well. We ended up almost close to 2 hours. It's a topic where it's so interesting, so new to a lot of people, and everybody wants to know more about it. The earlier session we spoke about, it came from the technology manufacturers, from tracking, from zero density, and many others. What XR is all about, and from their perspective, and now that from the educators' perspective, you have seen it, and there's still a lot more to go. Stay tuned. We got 2 more webinars before we hit November with the major event itself. I'll keep you all posted from time to time. I want to thank you, everyone, most especially Chaitanya, Professor Frank, Dr. Siti, Martin Chong, Clyde D'Souza, and Jason Devan for joining us today. And it's really truly an honor, my honor. And then I hope everybody benefited from this. Of course, the videos will be played on Facebook Live, and if anybody wants a recorded copy, I'll definitely send the link over, edited and summarized, shortened, of course, to make it to the point. So with that, thank you very much. But before we go, can we all turn our screens, or can we take a group photo? Okay, can everybody turn on their videos? Hang on, let me just take Adeline, can you take a snapshot of this?
Okay.
All right, everybody smile. Well, with that, thanks again for thanks for coming by, and we hope to keep you updated in the next round. Join us, stay tuned, and thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Louis, for organizing. Thank you, everyone.